going on, vinyl community? Welcome to another video with the Record Spinner. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the process of half-speed mastering. This is a term that you might see plastered on hype stickers of audiophile reissues, or you may see it in the dead wax of your records. And if you are wondering what exactly entails with it, perhaps this video will answer your questions and shine a light on what I feel is a great method to get great sound out of your vinyl records. So enough of the chit chat, let's jump into what this video is all about. As far back as the 1970s, companies such as Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab, Direct Disc Labs, and Nautilus Recordings were licensing albums from major labels in order to provide audiophile pressings of albums from their respective rosters. Some major labels decided to compete with these specialty labels, and various offshoots such as CBS Master Sound and the A&M Audiophile series were started. The big attraction with all of these labels, aside from working with the original master tapes, was that they mastered their albums using half-speed mastering. Now, what exactly does half-speed mastering mean? In the traditional world of vinyl manufacturing, the lacquers are cut from the source, whether it be analog tape or a digital file, at the actual speed of the usual album, which is at 33 1/3 RPM. With half-speed mastering, you are cutting that speed in half, so you would be cutting your lacquers at 16 2/3 RPM, and the source audio would be slowed down as well to where when it was played back at 33 1/3, it plays back at its normal speed. So let's say an album runs about 40 minutes in length. Traditionally, it takes the same amount of time to cut the lacquers, but with half-speed mastering, it'll take 80 minutes or a little over an hour to cut them. Now, there are some major advantages to using this process. When you are cutting a record at that slow of a speed, the cutting head has more time to render the grooves, and that allows for more detail to be extracted from the source material. And if you have a nice cartridge on your turntable, you will be able to hear that distinction. And when it comes to lacquer cutting in general, it is tough to cut fast, transient, high frequencies. Ones that are normally sustained are quite easier to capture. And once the stylus makes its way towards the center of the record, chances are you might come across some inner groove distortion, but luckily with half-speed mastering, it is easier to cut those higher frequencies, and that high-frequency roll-off towards the center where inner groove distortion occurs is indeed reduced. Now, there is also less power being used to run the cutting lathe at half speed, which provides a bit more room in the amplifier system if more power is needed, and that contributes to a more detailed groove that gets cut because there is a greater dynamic response and instrument separation. So with all of that entailed, you are getting a truly magnificent sounding record that is prepared in a special way that is destined to sound the best as possible from the start. Now, while there are the advantages, there are also the disadvantages, but luckily there's not a lot of them. But before we get to the nitty-gritty of it, it has to be acknowledged that there are only so many experienced engineers that can perform this process, and it's not like every mastering facility is equipped with a lathe that can run at 16 2/3 RPM. So it's these types of engineers and facilities that are going to be in high demand if labels want releases of this sort done. Also, not every single recording can be subjected to half-speed mastering. I can see this method being applied to albums that are beautifully produced and engineered, albums that audiophiles can go to as a reference. You can't really work half-speed magic on a lo-fi record or an album that lacks its fullest potential due to the production. Other than the production of the main recording itself, there is also the issue of sibilance that might occur in the higher frequencies, and engineers can't necessarily do what is called de-essing in real time, which suppresses sibilance. Or if engineers continue to pursue half-speed mastering with a certain recording, then the source will need more prep work done before the lacquers can be cut, which could ultimately result in the lacquers being cut from a digital source. Now, can the term half-speed mastering be used as a marketing tactic? Absolutely. When a record buyer sees the term marketed on a hype sticker or an Obi strip, it almost signals the release as a sort of impulse type of item. It can get people interested with what entails with the process, and that might drive them to buy the record and see for themselves what exactly entails with half-speed mastering. But in general, when labels put out releases and they are being marketed as being mastered at half speed, while it is released to the mainstream public, there is a certain demographic that they are looking to reach out to, and that is the audiophiles and those that are into hi-fi. So they know exactly what their target is. But what is really cool to know is that while it's usually older albums that are getting reissued by being mastered at half speed, there are even some new album releases that are getting done with this process. And the only way you would know is if you look in the dead wax. So it's definitely worth investigating if the new album that you just bought utilizes this process. But basically, if you see the term half-speed mastering listed anywhere on a record, you're going to be getting a great sounding record, and it's definitely worth taking the plunge. Now, for myself, I am a sucker for half-speed mastered records. There is just a certain luxurious sound to them that I feel captures all of the warmth, dynamics, and essence of the music and the source material. Now, that is not to say that regularly mastered records are subpar, because records that are mastered at their normal speed of 33 1/3 RPM do indeed sound fantastic, as that is basically the norm when it comes to vinyl lacquer cutting. There is just something a little extra going with half-speed mastering, and an odd but somewhat understandable way to describe it is like comparing a regularly mastered record to looking at the real Mona Lisa from 10 feet away. It's when you come up closer that you start to see some of the fine details that the human eye can't really catch from a distance, and that is the equivalent of a half-speed master. Now, of course, audible and visual experiences are different, but with half-speed mastering, it is one of those cases where you gotta experience and hear it to believe it. Now, here are some notable prime examples of some readily available releases that utilize half-speed mastering. Now, one of the few half-speed mastering facilities is at Abbey Road Studios, and aside from mastering regular releases there, they started their own half-speed master series called Mastered at Abbey Road Studios, and there are a whole bunch of artists that they've done reissues of, such as The Police and the Rolling Stones. And they've even been doing the ABBA catalog for each album's 40th anniversary. But aside from mastering them at half speed, they have been cutting them at 45 RPM. So I am sure those pressings sound absolutely godly. Now, the guy that masters all of the Abbey Road half-speed cuts, and perhaps the most important figure in the world of half-speed mastering, as he does call it, quote-unquote, the holy grail of vinyl cutting, is the engineer Miles Showell. And personally, he is one of the greatest mastering engineers in general. The source material of all of the Abbey Road stuff is digital, but Miles does new transfers of the master tapes using minimal EQ and no digital limiting, so it's a case where digital records can actually sound quite nice. And like I said, back in the 70s, Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab utilized half-speed mastering, and they still do to this day. Of course, using all analog tapes, and I'm sure if you're watching this video, you have listened to a MoFi pressing before. They sound absolutely wonderful. MoFi uses in-house mastering engineers such as Craig Wunderlich and Rob Loverty. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I am led to believe that MoFi has the one half-speed cutting lathe in North America, which is pretty wild. In regards to some of the more mainstream releases that are quite easy to obtain, the Queen Studio catalog got reissued in a nice colored vinyl box set alongside standard black vinyl reissues. Miles did these at Abbey Road. He used Bob Ludwig's 2011 remasters, and these sound absolutely amazing. And then one of the other Englishmen who are well-rounded in the world of half-speed mastering is Barry Grint at Alchemy Mastering. He is in charge of overseeing the half-speed mastering of the Emerson, Lake and Palmer Anthology box set. This is an awesome overview of the band. 4 LPs that come on Galaxy Color vinyl, and it sounds absolutely terrific. So there you guys go. That is my video on the process of half-speed mastering. What do you guys think of half-speed mastering? Do you have any records that use this process? Did this video get you interested in the whole thing? Please drop a comment down below. I'd love to know. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead, give it a like, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support this channel, be sure to check me out on Patreon. See you guys in the next video. And most importantly, keep the records spinning.